Hey everybody, it's Ricardo Gorski, the founder of Tax1, where we help individuals and businesses pay as little tax as legally possible. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the Cyprus PR, the Cyprus Permanent Residency, or as some people already call it, the Cyprus Golden Visa, because there are some very interesting upcoming news regarding the Cyprus PR in the near future. So in this video, I'm going to talk about everything. Who is the Cyprus PR for? How do you apply for it? What purchase is eligible for the PR and how much does it cost? So let's start right away with the background information, which I find interesting to understand where the Cyprus PR program is coming from in the first place. And that is actually Cyprus used to have an investment program regarding citizenships. However, in 2020, the Golden Passport program has been replaced with the Golden Visa program. So even Wikipedia already calls it the Golden Visa, where you don't receive the Cyprus European passport anymore in exchange for a property purchase, but you will receive a permit to stay in Cyprus indefinitely for however long you want. And while the Golden Passport program used to cost a few millions, you can get the Cyprus Golden Visa with an investment of just 300,000 euros. And so this leads to the next question. Why should you get a Cyprus PR in the first place? And the answer to that is pretty clear. If you want to have a long-term and stable right to live in the country Cyprus, then the Cyprus PR program is for you. If you want to live, work, and or study indefinitely without any limits, if your family, spouse, parents or children want to live in Cyprus and or work or study here, then the Cyprus PR program is for you and your family. Because the fundamental difference to the temporary residency, which we call TR, is that the temporary residency, and there are many different temporary residencies, must be renewed annually. So every now and then you need to provide new documents, apply for a new temporary residency, which is in most cases on an annual basis. So once a year, you need to actively renew the temporary residency in order to keep staying in Cyprus. And there's also a limit. The temporary residency under the pink slip, for example, can be renewed with a maximum of just 4 years. The visitor visa can also just be renewed a few times. And so there is obviously a fundamental difference between a temporary residency and a permanent residency, which the name already suggests in the first place. But let's get back to the temporary residency. And just one more thing that you need to know is that when you are in Cyprus under a temporary residency, then you must stay in Cyprus for 6 months per year. Otherwise, your temporary residency will be nullified, and the same applies also if you're out of the country of Cyprus for more than 3 months. So you shall not be out for more than 3 months out of the country Cyprus, because then upon re-entry into the country, they will not let you in the country because your temporary residency then has expired. And this is actually what happened to my girlfriend, who is a British citizen. We now applied for her Irish passport by descent, but previously she was in Cyprus under a visitor visa. And we had a very big problem when she wanted to enter the country, and we also had a very big problem when we entered the border in Nicosia between the northern part of Cyprus and the south part of Cyprus, because the authorities didn't recognize her visitor visa as it was attached to her employer, who she didn't work for anymore. And so we didn't know that her visa was tied to her work employment, and so she couldn't enter the country. But luckily we fixed that, and now she's a European citizen with the Irish passport, so that's definitely good. But it showed me in front of my eyes how much of a big problem non-Europeans have when they want to enter a European country under a visa or a temporary residency, which is also the reason why the citizenship by investment program is such a big market in the first place, and why some citizenships are so disadvantageous when it comes to visa-free traveling. But yes, this beautifully leads back to the Cyprus PR, which, by the way, I think is one of the best PRs in the European Union. And with the upcoming changes that I'm going to discuss in a minute, I actually think that the Cyprus PR can become the #1 Golden Visa in the European Union, and I will explain it in a second. First of all, another benefit of the Cyprus PR is that you can access local healthcare, education and social services much easier than under a temporary residency, and then you can also become a Cyprus tax resident even under the non-dom program with the special 60 days rule. Non-domicile tax residents in Cyprus are fully exempt from dividend taxation for the next 17 years, and Cyprus is one of the very few countries that offer a special tax residency rule with just 60 days. So if you spend 2 months in Cyprus in a tax calendar year, you can become a Cyprus tax resident, and with the PR you're eligible for that, which you are not under a temporary residency. Then the next benefit, we already briefly discussed it, and that is an easy and fast entry and exit out of the country. When you're under a Cyprus PR, you will not get a lot of questions at the airport, why you enter, who you're visiting, where your address is, because everything is already answered in the PR application. So you can have an easy and fast access and exit of the country. Then the Cyprus PR is a stepping stone for the EU citizenship. Even though the Cyprus Citizenship by Investment program, the Golden Passport, has stopped, there are still quite some options to gain European citizenship, which is especially interesting for non-European citizens that want to enter Europe, want to have a Plan B passport and gain the Cyprus citizenship without an investment other than the PR application. And you can expect to get your EU citizenship somewhere between, there is a fast track program which is as quick as 3 years, and the longest route is 7 years. For that, there are different criteria and requirements that we are more than happy to explain in an individual consultation call. But for now, I think it is interesting enough to just know, okay, here in Cyprus, you have the option to get a Cyprus citizenship, and it is not that hard or expensive. Next is, with the Cyprus PR, you're allowed to be a local director in Cyprus, which is kind of necessary for the 60 days rule. If you want to be a Cyprus non-dom under a 60 days rule, then you need to be employed or be a director in a Cyprus company. More on that in a minute. First, let's discuss the last reason for a Cyprus PR, and that is you will have access to Schengen within the next few months as soon as Cyprus actually enters the Schengen area, and we have quite some information already from the government. Here's a news article from IMI Daily where they state that the Cypriot government is closer than ever to enter Schengen, which will then also give you the benefit to travel visa-free to the other 30 plus Schengen countries, and this then would be one of the cheapest golden visas with Schengen access, which will then obviously also increase the demand, and then logically also the property prices, and maybe they will even increase the minimum investment for a Cyprus Golden Visa, because the government obviously also realizes this, and they make money from the VAT that will be applied to the properties that are being sold with the PR, so the government also gets its benefits from that. And now we answered the question why a Cyprus PR makes sense. The next question then is, okay, but for whom is it? And here we have quite some profiles where I think the Cyprus PR is definitely for them, and that is one, obviously, people and families that want to start a new life in Cyprus, because you also have the option to start a business even as a non-European citizen with the business facilitation unit, where you register a company of foreign interest, and then you can be employed and be a local director in that company, which then also again gives you the benefit to be a Cyprus non-dom under the 60 days rule. Next, it is for individuals that don't want pressure that temporary residencies give you, for individuals that don't want time limits and or renew documents on an ongoing basis. Next, as briefly discussed already, it is for individuals that want to enter the European Union with a beautiful path, an easy path to citizenship. It is for individuals and families that want to fully integrate into the country Cyprus, start a whole new chapter here and use the whole infrastructure of Cyprus. Healthcare, education, everything that we discussed earlier. You will almost have the exact same rights as citizens or even Europeans here in the country, with the exception of not being able to vote. But that would change with this citizenship. Next, it is for entrepreneurs, investors and businesses that want to establish a company, again under the BFU, and invest 200,000 euros into that company of foreign interest so that you can then become a director yourself or employ yourself. And if you then go via this 200,000 euros investment route, I know it is getting a little bit complex here now. There's a different scheme that the 300,000 euros property investment. There is another scheme which is the company of foreign interest, and in order to employ foreign non-European citizens you need to register it with the BFU. I will make a separate video about that in the near future, so definitely make sure to subscribe. But I just wanted to say that you can become a director and you can be employed here in Cyprus, so that definitely has quite some benefits. And one of them is again that you can be a non-dom under the 60 days rule. And just to explain how beneficial this is, so you could be living in Cyprus for 2 months per year, for example. 4 months you spend in the UAE. 2 months you spend in your home country, and the remaining time you just travel across the globe, you do business, you visit friends and families, whatever you do, and you can still fully declare all of your investments, income, assets here in Cyprus under the non-dom with 0% dividend tax, 0% tax on interest income, 0% capital gains tax, and all these other benefits that I discuss in many other videos. But first of all, let's get back to the main Cyprus PR program, because we are talking about quite some other things now, but they are important in order to understand the whole picture of the Cyprus PR, what benefits and limitations it has. But the investment options that you have when you invest the 300,000 euros into Cyprus is not just one property. There are actually 4 options, and that is A, an investment into a house, which must be your first property, and it costs at least 300,000 euros plus VAT. How much VAT is it? It is either 5% or 19%. We have our partner company Offplan.one, which is more than happy to assist you in finding the ideal property for your PR application. But let's look at the other investment options, and that is B, investment in real estate. Now it is excluding houses and apartments, which is A basically. So A is houses and apartments, your permanent house, your dream house, your apartment that you want to live in. And B is then other types of real estates, such as offices, shops, hotels, real estate developments, or a combination of them. The most important factor is again that it has a total value of 300,000 euros. And the interesting thing here is with option B, you have the option to buy a resale, but not houses and not apartments. So this would be a commercial investment, for example. Then C and D. Before I talk about them, I have to say that with dozens of PR applications that we have done now, we have never done C and or D, but I will still go over it just so the video is perfect and my OCD is not triggered. So number C is that you invest into a Cyprus company. It can be a startup, for example, but the tricky part is that it needs to employ at least 5 people, as you can see here in the last sentence. So that is quite hard, because startups usually don't have 5 employed people right from the beginning, and then companies that do have 5 are not newly started companies, so then this option C wouldn't be eligible for that investment. But if you're interested in option C or D, we are also happy to advise you in an individual consultation call. I'm just saying A and B, and 95%, 99% of the cases are option A, but still. Then we have again 300,000 euros in units of Cyprus Investment Organization Collective Investments. Those are the forms right here. So we see there are quite some options for the immigration permits for investors. This is from the official website of the Cyprus government. But if you watch this video, I'm more than sure that you're probably going to buy a property that you're either going to live in yourself or your family will live inside. And so in that case, I'm now going to give you the additional criteria for that investment, and that is an annual income of 50,000 euros for you as the applicant, as the main applicant. Then if you have a spouse, an additional 15,000 euros per year, and per child that will join the application, it will be an additional 10,000 euros. Regarding the annual income, that can be any kind of income, whether it is capital gains, actual salary income, dividends, royalties, pension, retirement, any kind of income will work. The only thing that is important is that you prove it through tax declarations or tax returns from your previous country. Or if you cannot provide that, an independent chartered accountant can also help and assist with that. And if you do not know or have a chartered accountant, and we are also happy to assist you to find one even in your home country with our trusted partners. Then next is a clean criminal record. Very obvious for various different applications. Health insurance certificate, and this can be the very cheap normal immigration health insurance, which costs just 200 euros, something like that, per applicant. Then we need a payment confirmation of at least 66% of the property value that you're going to buy. And with the Cyprus PR, you need to visit Cyprus once every 2 years, which is much easier than staying in the country for 6 months and not being out for 3 consecutive months. Also, the interesting thing is that parents can be included and children up to 18 years are included. 18 to 24-year-old children, if they are unmarried, students and or financially dependent, they can also be included, but 25-year-olds can only be included with very special exceptions. It is very rare that 25-year-olds will be included in your application because they are seen as adults themselves, especially if they are financially independent, and then they need to make their own application and investment into a property. So now it's getting very interesting because we are going to discuss the costs of the Cyprus PR or Golden Visa, whatever you want to call it. And that is, number one, the PR application fee, which is 2,000 euros in our office. That is a flat fee. The 2,000 euros is our lawyer's fee that we charge for drafting and submitting the application. And then we also have a governmental fee per applicant, which is a real out-of-pocket expense that we have at the government here in Cyprus, and that is 500 euros per applicant. Then with every applicant, there will also be an alien registration certificate per applicant, which costs 70 euros. Again, real expenses from the government, as well as the courier service, but this is optional only if the applicants are currently not in the country Cyprus and we need to ship it out of the country. Then an approximate 200 euros fee apply. And number 5, because you're also going to buy a property and we like to do everything in-house, what we recently did is we changed from the usual market standard 1% fee that most of the other law firms charge for every sales agreement or property that you're going to buy. We started to issue a flat fee of 3,000 euros. If you're going to do the PR with us, then the property agreement, we charge a flat 3,000 euros regardless of how much the property costs. Why? Because we recently had a case where a couple purchased 2 different properties with us from the same project, and one of that was a villa for 900,000 euros and the other one was a smaller, much smaller villa for 600,000 euros. And then we were about to issue the invoice and the difference was a few thousand euros between those 2 contracts. And in that moment we realized the work was the exact same, so why would we charge one person much more and the other person much less just for the same kind of work? And so we think it is much more fair and straightforward to just charge a flat fee regardless of the property price, because this is not where we make our money at all. We want to build long-lasting relationships with our clients, gain their trust, and then offer a one-stop solution for everything. We want to be your point of contact for setups, for maintenance, accounting, auditing, real estate, all that, and we think this is how we will be able to achieve it. But back to the topic, there are quite some alternative residence permits next to the Cyprus PR with the 300,000 euros investment, and that is one, the category F, which is by paper also permanent residency, by the way, but it is not being processed anymore. If you apply for the category F PR, as of today, you're not going to be accepted. You will wait years and then you will get rejected. So it is just a waste of time. But if anything changes regarding that, I will definitely update you on that channel right here. Then we also have the BFU company option with the company of foreign interest that I explained earlier. And I just realized that a separate video is definitely needed for that. But the main thing here is that this is not a permanent residency. It is a residency permit for 36 months. And you don't have as many benefits as with the Cyprus PR. Then we have the very popular pink slip, but this is the temporary residence, and I explained very well what the disadvantages of TRs are, especially if you want to stay permanently or long-term here in Cyprus. Then we have the visitor visa, which is very similar to the pink slip, by the way, which my girlfriend had, as I explained earlier in the case. Then you also have the option to marry a Cypriot, of course, which will then give you the permanent residency and the Cypriot citizenship much faster. But in all those cases, except the marriage to a Cypriot one, you have to remember that you cannot stay out of the country for more than 3 months, because your visa or residency permit will be cancelled immediately and you will not be able to enter the country Cyprus with that residency again. Now, I mentioned the 60 days tax residency quite sometimes already, because this is important to understand if you are a non-European citizen, how you can actually be eligible for the 60 days rule. And also on that I will create a separate video in the future, so definitely make sure to subscribe to the channel. But there are 5 requirements that you need to fulfill simultaneously in order to be eligible for the tax residency under the 60 days rule. And when I'm going to talk about those 5 requirements, then you will understand why the Cyprus PR is mandatory. Number 1 is not spend more than 183 days or 6 months in any other country per tax calendar year, because then you will trigger tax residency in that country. Number 2 is not be a tax resident in any other country, because staying less than 6 months in any other country doesn't mean that you will not trigger their tax residency. For example, the UK or Scandinavian countries, you can become their tax resident with much less months, 3-4 months in the UK, for example. Then number 3 is you need to obviously spend 60 days in Cyprus, which I think is quite easy. And then number 4 is you need to maintain a permanent home in Cyprus. When you apply for a Cyprus PR, it will probably be the property that you're going to purchase, but it can also be if you're a European citizen. But this video is mainly not for Europeans. The Europeans don't need the Cyprus PR, they just get the yellow slip. So I assume that most of you are non-Europeans. But it can also be a rental contract, a property that you rent for at least 6, but preferably 12 months. We would need to look into your specific case, how many months you would need if you will not spend time in Cyprus. But the last one is to exercise a business in Cyprus. And here comes my main point, because you also need to employ or hold an office in Cyprus. And this is hard to accomplish without a company of foreign interest. So in addition to the Cyprus PR, you also need to invest 200,000 euros into a company that we will then register with the BFU, so that it is a company of foreign interest, and you can then employ foreign citizens yourself under that company, and just then you can apply for the 60 days rule. But don't get me wrong, this does not affect your normal 183 days tax residency. You can become a tax resident in Cyprus if you spend 6 months in the country. But if you want to take advantage of the 60 days rule, then you would need to be employed under a BFU company. It doesn't need to be your own, it just needs to be a BFU, but you could incorporate your own. Good. So yeah, I agree, this is a rather complex topic, but I definitely wanted to make sure to include everything, so that after watching this video you have no questions anymore regarding the Cyprus PR and you're ready to go, so to say. Now let's finish off the video with some very important notes for the Cyprus PR, and that is number 1, the money that you're going to use, the 300,000 euros for the investment, it needs to come from abroad, from a bank account that you own personally, or your spouse, or a UBO company, meaning a company where you are the ultimate beneficial owner. Also, in many cases, you need to provide proof of funds. Depending on your citizenship, if you are from a risky country, then we definitely need proof of funds. If you are from a more white-listed country, then maybe not. We would need to look into your individual case. Next is also very interesting, because you actually don't need to buy the property yourself under your individual name, under you as a natural person, because you can also use a legal entity. A property can also be bought by a EU company, where you are the UBO again. So if you have a company and for tax advantages you want to buy the property in Cyprus with a company, or your goals are to invest into more companies in the future, then you can also exploit a company for that. Next is that your physical presence is not really necessary. Obviously, we recommend you to come to Cyprus to take a few viewings, look at different properties, get a feeling of Cyprus. But if you decided for a property, for the actual process and the PR application, you don't need to be in Cyprus. We can do everything here as your legal representatives. And then the processing time is approximately 2 months. But to be completely transparent, we like to say 3 months when we talk to our clients, just so we don't disappoint our clients. And we say 2 months, but then it is 2.5 months. So we always rather say 3 months, but we can do it in 2 months. In many cases, we are able to do it in less even. And now, very interesting is that I personally think that the price will probably increase. The minimum investment of 300,000 euros will probably be increased in the near future because the benefits of the Cyprus PR will increase when Cyprus enters Schengen. The demand will increase, property prices will increase, more foreigners are going to apply for the Cyprus PR, more foreigners are going to buy properties here in Cyprus because the residency by investment and citizenship by investment market is just so big, and there are so many foreigners from third world countries that are collecting PRs, so to say, that I think that the Cyprus government will increase the prices a little bit, especially if we compare it with Greece, for example. They have a very interesting PR program where you pay a different price depending on which location the property is that you're going to buy. So let's say a location, Athens, you need to invest 900,000 euros to get the Greece PR with Schengen access. So 300,000 euros in Cyprus, regardless of the location, is definitely a very good deal, and I wouldn't be surprised if they are going to change it. So if you're interested in the Cyprus PR, definitely make sure to reach out to us on tax.one. We are more than happy to assist you in every step of the way. And as you realize, there are definitely a lot of more interesting videos coming in the near future. So if you subscribe to the channel, I will see you in the next one.